In this episode, myself and Brian have a conversation about the 2023 cruising season, choosing a crew, and also maintaining DELOS. How did the season go last season?
Last season was great. I mean, it's kind of been an interesting season with COVID, of course. You know, we started out really in Antigua when we came back on board a little over 2 years ago. And then we kind of meandered through the Caribbean and up the east coast of the US. And then we went all the way up to Maine, and we were going to go up into Canada and explore like Nova Scotia, but the Canadian border was still locked down. So we turned around at the border, and then we sailed all the way back down to Florida and then Mexico and then Panama. So that's where we are right now. We're in the San Blas Islands of Panama, which is a lovely spot. There's nothing here. We're about 20 miles off the Panamanian mainland. It's just islands and palm trees and a few of the Kunas in their Cayuco canoes and us and a few other boats, and that's it. But it's lovely here.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's one place I'm really looking forward to sailing down to. I'm trying to convince as many people who are in the Caribbean to go there for the winter season. For the summer season.
Oh yeah.
But, everyone's like, it's too far. That's too tough of a sail. How long does it take to get there from where you were?
It's about 1,000 miles from Mexico. 1,000 miles from Isla Mujeres. It's about 2,000 miles if you sail from Trinidad and Tobago or Grenada. I think it's like 1,000 miles from the ABC, something like that. Yeah, it makes sense if you're going to go through the canal.
Yeah, I think that's it's probably one of the only reasons why a lot of people go down there. But I just go down there and spend the hurricane season there. I just think it's gorgeous. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. The only problem is that from, the rainy season starts in May, June, and goes pretty hardcore. And in this area in particular, the lightning gets intense. So it's really known for lightning strikes. And so that's why the dry season is so lovely down here. It's because it's clear and the temperature is always right around 30 degrees. There's always 15 to 20 knots of wind. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, just perfect conditions. So you did quite a lot of miles last year then. You pretty much did the entire coast of North America, and now you've come all the way down to Panama.
I think I can't remember exactly, 5,000 or 6,000 miles maybe.
What's the plan then? How come you ended up going so far down south? Are you planning on going through the canal?
Yeah, we are. We're going through actually in a couple of weeks. So end of March, we should be going through, and it's just time. We've been in the Atlantic now for almost 6 years since we left South Africa. And get to go. I'm 2,000 miles from finishing the circumnavigation, which I never really cared about until I got really close. And I'm all I have to do is go through the canal and get into the Pacific, and then we're done. And then we can just keep on going or whatever, But that's it. The plan is right now to, we were going to do the South Pacific, but French Polynesia is open, but so much of it is still closed, and there's just so many places between French Polynesia and Fiji that that I want to go back to again, and just to do it and have to skip all that stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. So we'll go through the canal, and there's a lot to explore. You've got Costa Rica, you've got El Salvador, you've got some parts of Honduras over there, and then you've got the whole Pacific coast of Mexico, and then you get up into the Sea of Cortez by hurricane season, and then you can cruise up there, and it's cool because now I'm getting back to places that I sailed over 10 years ago in the same boat, and it's going to be interesting to see how much it's changed and how much I've changed. And I'm stoked about it. And I love Mexican food, so that's always the bonus.
Yeah, it's actually the country I'm looking forward to most. I'd say just for the food. Whenever we discuss, where are we looking forward to? We're based in the Med, and we're Greece has got amazing food. Turkey has. If I could just eat street Mexican food every single day, I'd be so happy for the rest of my life. So maybe that's the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome that you're going to be going back and doing that route, because that's like when most people started watching you guys on YouTube, that's the type of locations you were at, or you were doing videos at for a while, I think.
Yeah, like our first video I think that we ever put out, which wasn't really a video, it was more of like I think
Like a
just a
clip.
few pictures with some music to it or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was leaving uh, Puerto Vallarta and the Bay of Banderas, and then setting out across the South Pacific.
Yeah, but so different,
Yeah,
because there was basically you with your brother and like buddies and, like random nomads you picked up along the route. And, now you go back with your wife and
exactly.
your kid. You've had so many different crew on board and like people from all over the world. Okay, so if it does come to crossing the Pacific, that could be, I don't know, I mean, somebody could be on the boat for like a month, 2 months, 3 months at a time, depending on like where you're sailing from and where you're going to. What do you look for in a person when it comes to making a decision on that? Because that's like spending a few months with your family. That's quite intense.
Yeah, well, it's changed over the years. Before we just used to grab, who random people, anybody that could pay their own way and, help pay the shares of the boat. Now it's really driven by Sierra. And so,
Yeah.
it's harder, unfortunately, for us just to invite, random people or people that we haven't met before. And so now we kind of stick to people like that we know and we've become friends with, and that we know that they're solid sailors, because it's a full-time job, sailing the boat, and it's a full-time job watching, Sierra. She's 2.5 now, and so then I really, we're looking for somebody that can, is cool, like can handle their stuff, not break down in stressful situations, like have some sailing knowledge, like capable of doing night watches, because just that sort of thing, and also like people that I think it's interesting. After sailing with so many people, I really like meeting and having new people, but I also just as much like having people back that have sailed with us before.
Yeah.
In previous seasons, just because you have like that shared history and that camaraderie, and you kind of know them, and it just sort of fits in a groove. So, if we could find like one or two other people, that would be perfect.
Yeah. How many people can you actually get on that boat comfortably?
We've had 7. Yeah, comfortably 6.
Okay.
You can get
So
two in the back, 2 in the front, 1 in the pass through, and 1 in the bunk in the salon.
right. Okay.
And then that's pretty. I mean, yeah, 6 is
Pretty
doable.
full.
7's a stretch. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 is
I
like
mean,
not an issue at all. Yeah.
yeah, I think for like those long passages, like if I mean, I know because your wife takes care of Sierra quite a bit when you're doing like when you're doing the long passages and stuff. So yeah, I think like a few other people at least. So you're just not sat and watch for like 6 hours at a time.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that's good about long passages is you actually can have more people than you would, I think, at anchor or just normal cruising, because on passage you're like either outside, you're on watch, or you're resting, or you're sailing the boat or something. And so there's just a lot, people are doing those things, and people are sleeping in shifts and stuff, and so it just seems like things are a little bit more streamlined, or they everything just sort of functions like on a predictable schedule when you're at sea. And so then it's easy to be like, okay, your watch is this to this, you're sleeping from this to this, and then you can have room out in the cockpit or in the salon or wherever, and everybody's not crawling all over each other. Like,
Well, everyone's chilled out as well.
sense.
I mean, no one's making plans or trying to go anywhere. Like everyone knows exactly what they're doing. So yeah, it's way more chilled than if you were on anchor in a
Yeah,
day
it's
and it was really
exactly it.
crowded or something.
You're like a one car family,
Yeah.
with the dinghy, if you don't count like paddle boards and stuff. So if somebody wants to take the dinghy in, then everybody else is kind of stranded, and so you're always trying to
Yeah.
coordinate like herding cats to get everybody ready. Okay, we're going in, like everybody get in the dinghy.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
don't have to worry
family
about
van
that.
type of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So how's I mean, I know you just did like a bunch of like refit work or some upgrades, that type of stuff. How is the boat holding up in general? Because you've had the boat for quite a while, and I think it's about 20 years old now, something like that.
She is. She's a
Yeah.
2000, so she's 22 years old. I've owned her since 2008,
Right.
which has been quite a while. And I saw a huge spike in maintenance around the 15-year mark when she turned 15 years old. And
Okay.
then, because then it was like the electronics are super outdated. The generator needed replacing, those sort of big things. We had to redo the rig, all the standing rigging, and now it's just normal things, like, because all the major things have been replaced, all the major systems have been replaced, with the exception of the Volvo, the main diesel, which has 8,500 hours on her at this point, but still like doesn't burn any oil.
Oh, wow.
Just runs like a little champ. So yeah, I mean, everything's actually pretty good. I probably shouldn't say that because as soon as I say that, something happens.
Tomorrow.
But at this point, like all the toilets are working, the water maker is working, the generator's working, all the nav is working. So and all the sales are good. So we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, that's a hell of a lot of miles to go on one engine. Like a lot of people would have thrown that out and got a new one by now. But I've got a Volvo in my boat. They're so good and reliable. And I spoke to many people who've like gone 12, 13,000 hours, like plus.
Yeah.
They last.
Well, what I found is as long as you put clean fuel in it, clean air, and change the oil regularly, they'll do pretty well. It's the inside of the engine. It's all the stuff on the outside that starts to fail. I've replaced obviously the timing belts, the fuel injection pump, like the alternators, like all the water pumps, the heat exchanger, like everything bolted to the outside. I've replaced over the last couple of years, but the internal part of the engine is still original.
Yeah, like the block of the engine.
Yeah.
I
even had to put new motor mounts. The motor mounts wore out last year, so it's like, okay, got to put in new transmission mounts, new motor mounts. It's like never ending.
That was the first time you did it.
Yeah.
Wow, so it lasted a long time. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
did pretty well.
Yeah, but if it's it's a balanced engine, it's not like wobbling about a lot, then I suppose it would be all right. Just going on to the maintenance side, do you have like an annual budget for maintenance that you've worked out over the years, like how much the boat roughly costs you, not including like your cruising kitty or anything like that, but just keeping the boat floating?
Oh man, what's the number? I had it down to a pretty accurate percentage of hull value. Okay. And I thought, and I think oh man, I'll have to get the number back, but it was I figured, what was it, 3 to 4% of hull value per year, assuming that you do all the work yourself, is what I think our average is, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
So, and it varied. Some years it was 10%, some years it was 2%, but I think the average was in like that, maybe 3 to 5%. I'm just guessing, but I mean it should be right around there.
So it would be somewhere like 6 to 10 grand, something in that type of range, which is
there's years where we've spent 30 grand, there's years where we've spent 10 grand, but I mean, I think the whole value on Delos right now is right around $300,000 US, or 280,000 euros, or whatever it comes out to. That's what the insured value is. So it's kind of basing. So if we're at 5%, then what is 5% of 300 grand? It's about 15 grand a year or something like that. Maybe triple it if you don't do your own work. So
yeah, and it's like
labor.
I said, as soon as the standing rigging needs changing, or like you need some new sails, then boom, big money.
Yeah, we got a quote to replace the standing rigging in Thailand. The guy said it would be 20,000 euros and take him about 6 weeks to do it. We did it for ourselves for 8,000 euros, and we did it in 10 days. So you gotta kind of take what people say with a grain of salt, really. Yeah.
If you want to check out these podcasts in full video format, join our Patreon community. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook to keep up to date with what we're doing.